and welcome to Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty, and yeah, I'm glad you could be back here. Hope you all had a great weekend. Mine was slightly uneventful. I didn't really do too much. Well, actually, went down south to the Bay Area. I've been avoiding going into the city. A little bit about where I live. I live in a small town about, I don't even know, maybe 20,000 people, and that might be a stretch. That might be a big stretch, actually. But I'm not really sure. I haven't looked in the demographics of it. But pretty much, it's a type of town where you might see a new face every so often. I mean, it really just depends. But it's a very small area. It's not like the city where you kind of go into and you see people, new faces all the time, and maybe run into somebody at a bar or something down the street from you, and you never see them again, the entire time you live there. So it's a very small area, familiar faces, familiar smiles, and things like that. But I went down south for the weekend to get a car. I didn't actually get a car while I was down there, but it gave me a good opportunity to kind of see the cars, because part of being in a rural area means that the cars are going to be a lot more expensive up here than they are in San Francisco and other bigger cities, which is understandable, I guess. But so anyway, I went down there to get a car, and I've kind of been avoiding big cities because of the whole coronavirus epidemic and things like that that's going on. But it turned out well. I brought hand sanitizer. I pretty much went through the entire bottle of hand sanitizer. It's kind of just one of those mini bottles. But hey, I'd rather over sanitize than to under sanitize and end up catching something that I don't want to catch. So that's good. I actually use the hand sanitizer on my hand. I'd like drench it on my hand, and then I had a rental car, and I would just like lather up the steering wheel with the rental car on the rental car, and like the Prindle, is that Prindus, the park reverse neutral drive sport. Yeah, that knob. I sound like an idiot if I'm trying to explain cars, but anyway, so yeah, I went down there, and it turned out well. I actually started feeling a lot better than I did before, because that whole running pneumonia thing lasted a bit longer than expected. So finally, tip top, back to completely good health, or as far as I know. I don't know, no headaches and uh, no coughing and sneezing or anything like that. So that's all good. We do have a special guest today, so I'm really happy to announce that my neighbor's wind chimes. So they're going to be chiming in at inopportune times, so just expect that. And speaking of guests, actually, there are going to be a few guests on the show. I mentioned in the first episode that there will be a few guests that may come on to kind of just talk with me about some of these things. They're going to just talk to me the entire time, tell me a story. No, they're going to talk with me about some of these topics. And as the ball gets rolling with the podcast, obviously, and topics start being generated and more people have ideas about these topics and they're sending them into me, it's getting more clear that I guess there are different topics that people would want to speak about, or they have a passion with, or maybe it's part of their expertise or whatever it is. And they're asking to be on the show in some way, shape, or form. So expect that to happen. It really does take some time to organize that, just because of, you can't just throw somebody onto a show with the topic and hope that the conversation is going to go well. Obviously, there has to be some preconceived knowledge of what topic we're going to be discussing, and obviously their contribution to that topic in whatever way that is. So expect that. It'll be nice to have like another person on this, I'm sure, for y'all not to just hear my voice all the time, but also just it's always good to just have another perspective and have someone else there to bounce ideas off or thoughts off of, and kind of interject when things aren't really being said in the right way. I mean, there are so many times where I'm getting feedback. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, so thank you so much for all that feedback. But I'm getting some feedback where it's like kind of just different thoughts on some of the topics, or a different avenue of thought that I may have covered, and just someone else thinks of it differently or thinks of it in a different way. And I think that's amazing, and that's exactly what I want to bring from this, is like that discussion, that conversation, because the only way that we get to understand these things better is by having these ideas and realizing that our thoughts aren't the only thoughts, and that there are different ways to go about all of this stuff. So um yeah, expect a guest, and it's going to be it'll obviously help to evolve the show and help to bring just a little more dynamics to it. And I think that's never a bad thing. Diversity, dynamics, and hey, it's all good stuff. So, uh, as for topics, I asked in the last episode that um, I have this box with various topics inside of it, and if you have any topic ideas, to send those in. I did get a couple ideas, so I'm just gonna list those off just in case other people have ideas. I don't want them to, you feel like yours isn't in the box already, or if you get if I get repeat things, then obviously I'm not going to put doubles in the box. So this is just for your knowledge, so you know what's going in the box. And then if it's a topic that you wanted to hear, then great. And if it's a topic that, if none of the topics are anything that you specifically would want to hear, then obviously send those into the email everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. Again, I'll plug all of that stuff in at the end of the podcast. So as for the new topics that came in, these are great topics, and I love. And again, thank you for sending these in. So one of the topics is family, and I put kind of in parentheses circumstances, obligations, structure. So the different dynamics of families. This was kind of in response to the social obligations podcast, and a lot of times we can get caught up in different obligations that we feel from family, or just what does it mean to be a family, and creating our own family and things like that. So that topic can be something that's really huge because it influences all of us, whether we have created our own family or made our own family, or are obviously part of a family in some kind of way. It's something that definitely relates to us. But there are so many dynamics to that. I mean, there's studies done on families all the time, just like the dynamics and how people move. So that's going to be a good topic. So family. Another one is acknowledging and embracing strengths. I think that's something so big, and I'm surprised that I didn't bring this as a topic, but I'm so thankful for the person that brought this to me. And acknowledging and embracing strengths is something so powerful and something so needed. So that's going to be another topic. Self improvement slash developing slash development. So self development, self improvement, and embracing the things that improve us and that help us to improve ourselves in our lives. And so that's going to be another topic as well. So I guess just another rundown of those: family, acknowledging and embracing strengths, and self improvement slash self development. And so those are in the box already. I put them in the box. I wrote them down previously, so they may be drawn in a minute when I draw the next topic for the week. But another thing that came to me was feedback about the dreams episode. And I was thinking of maybe having something where I know a lot of these topics I may not go into as much depth as some of you may want, or maybe I don't cover a specific part of the topic that some of you may be interested in hearing. And of course, I mean, I can only do so much within the time that's within this podcast. I mean, I don't want it to be like an hour long podcast that still doesn't even cover the surface of a lot of these things. But I was thinking of like maybe doing like something like a 20-minute episode or rundown of something that's part of these topics, but again, like maybe hasn't been fully discussed, or maybe a part of it hasn't been fully discussed as to your liking or whatever it is, and kind of just like follow-up episodes on these things. So one feedback I got was again on dreams episode, and specifically about nightmares. And of course I kind of like went over this, just like with nightmares being like this anxious manifestation of these things that we're feeling within ourselves, but kind of how to deal with that, and maybe the only thing that we have that allows us to recognize that we're dealing with something is our nightmares. So or the dreams that we're having that aren't pleasing to us. So the ways in which like maybe we can start manifesting new things within our subconscious minds, or why those things are still pervading there, even if we feel like we've worked on those things. So I was saying I kind of put that aside as one of the topic ideas, just as like a follow-up idea. So that may be something that comes in a smaller episode, so something a little more concise, maybe 15-20 minutes, where you can kind of listen to it and kind of just get a smaller idea of something that's been discussed already. So I'm going to stop rambling about that, but those are the topics that were added. And they were in the box. So please send those in if you have any topics or any ideas that you'd like to hear. And yeah, that'd be great. So box, shaking it up. I didn't draw this time, so this is gonna be a brand new drawing. Um, and again, I put it on receipt paper because why not recycle receipts? They always give me receipts. I ask for no receipts. There are times when I ask for no no receipts specifically, or like I swipe my card and they there's like it prompts you if you want a receipt or no, and you put no receipt. They still hand you a receipt. It's kind of crazy, but so so yeah, that's what that is. Oh wow, okay. So this is gonna be the next topic, and that is dating. Yeah, dating. Okay, so dating. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I guess many people are dating and out there and doing that kind of thing, and I guess it can be discouraging and just building relationships and things like that. I guess maybe dating slash relationships. We'll put it as that because I think dating is very surface level and is only the preface of what people are looking for. I mean, people aren't dating just to date; they're dating because they want to be in a relationship or find that companionship in that way. So, so dating, that's going to be the next topic. And if for some reason it goes outside of dating and relationships, I will announce that as we go through the next episode. So expect that. Dating, relationships. Many of you have your um, stories, whether horror stories or positive stories of dating and the outcomes of those and what exactly all that means. I mean, I'm not going to go into it right now, but online dating and the struggles of that. I'm sure many people have stories with that, but yeah, next week dating. That's going to be what that is. So, um, as far as that goes, I'm not going to go over news because I think that this first part has been kind of taken up with just that stuff. So maybe the news won't even fit by the time I'm finished with developing and evolving in this podcast. But again, this podcast is going to be ever evolving. It's going to be ever changing, just like life, just like us, people. Nothing's going to be the same. If you expect this podcast to be the same, then I'm sorry, but I will not live up to your expectations. Um, so this will change, and again, so news wasn't part of this one. Maybe I'll bring in some like updates of something like super important or something later on. But as for now, it's just gonna be. I'm just gonna let go. I mean, I don't have to explain to you. No, but something I did actually think about was. I guess new people listening to this podcast may not know exactly what's being discussed. So, I mean, you may have gotten a gist from the topics that were brought up and like the way I spoke about them. But basically, this podcast is speaking about the things that we think about, things that we experience, things that we go through in life, and all the different like walks of life, and basically just speaking about those things on a deeper level, and really understanding that way in which we can connect through better understanding and having these conversations of these topics. So yeah, basically just talking about the things that we think about but don't really speak about, and hoping to evolve that into conversation outside of this podcast and people feeling comfortable speaking about these things to friends, families, groups, whatever it is. So gonna get right to it. Well, after 13 minutes, I'm gonna get right to it. So today's the topic is feeling stuck or bored in your life, and I think that's something a lot of us can relate to, especially I guess being bored. Sometimes being bored, I put that in there as well because I feel like there are sometimes when we're bored, we just have to do something like we're just bored for that day. But there's sometimes when that boredom is kind of like everlasting. Like day to day, we kind of feel like it's monotonous, and like we're just bored and unenthused in our lives, and a lot of times we can say that as boredom, or we can say that we're kind of stuck. We're in this rut in our lives, kind of like this place where we don't know exactly what to do or where to go or like what's next kind of thing. And I mean, a lot of times that can be like an uncomfortable feeling because we're feeling lost, we're feeling confused, we're feeling scared, or just like really just uncertain about what that next step is. And I guess I want to start this off by saying that that's okay. It's okay to not know. Like I spoke about in the last episode about dreams, is that like we can have our dreams of our dreams and our goals of where we want to be, and what we want in our lives. Like hold on to that essence of what we want in our life, but knowing that path to get there isn't going to help at all. It's actually going to cause more disruption, more interruption, more dismay in your life, because you're trying so hard to make that path of where you're going when you can't really control that. The only thing you can control is that perseverance that you have of that goal, of that dream, of that thing you want. So, and first in this like idea of feeling stuck, really ask yourself, what is it that you want out of this experience? And it doesn't have to be, again, like you don't have to be completely certain, but what's the basis of it? Maybe you want more fulfillment, maybe you want more love, maybe you want more money or anything like that. It's just like start with that baseline of what it is, and then go from there. I mean, but again, like that path doesn't have to be set in stone. As that idea becomes more clear, hold on to the idea, hold on to the goal, but the path to get there and like the things leading you to that place is not necessarily needing to be known, and and that feeling that we need to know that is kind of what gets us stuck. It kind of feels like, okay, what's that next step? Like, what do I do next? And therefore, we're kind of circling around that idea of like what to do next. How do I, like, what am I, what's that next move that I'm supposed to make? And we get so stuck in that idea that it keeps us right there in the same place. Like, rather than even saying like, okay, I might try this, I might do this, or whatever it is, it's like, or yeah, whatever it is, it's like we get stuck in that circle, in that loop of kind of saying, okay, well, I'm not really sure what that next step is, so I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and then hopefully understand it. But then like you come to this point of anxiety because you're bored and stuck and you're not really feeling as though you're working towards the things that you truly want. Then you kind of like start thinking about, okay, what's that next step? And then you get lost again in that circle. But part of it is first saying, okay, I keep revolving around in the circle. I keep, coming to this point where I want to do something, but I'm not sure how to do it. And then I find myself back asking the same question again. First, okay, again, it's okay to not know what everything in that path is going to lead to, but just whatever a next step would be, whether it's finding a job that you really love. Maybe it's updating your resume. And I'm not gonna go and give you tips of how to get unstuck, because it's so dynamic that, I mean, anything I kind of say in this moment would probably not even relate to you in that specific way, in those specific examples. So again, just in your own way of however you're feeling stuck in your life, in whatever situation, know that you don't have to know that next step, but actively work towards your goal, whatever that is. Actively work towards it mentally, like within your own space. And sometimes that just means like changing up the things that are around you. Something that's so critical in being stuck or feeling stuck in a place is that, again, like that day-to-day life, it's monotonous. You're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, and you get not only wrapped up in the circle in your head, but you're also getting wrapped up in like that circle that is just like this weird system of life. You wake up, you turn off your alarm, you do your morning routine or whatever, go to work, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, wake up. It's like this kind of routine that's not really fulfillment. It's like, we, just like our dreams are big, just like our passions are big, we have to live kind of according to the things that we're truly feeling within ourselves, the way that we truly are as people. And I don't think we're doing that when we kind of fall into this line of repeating the same day-to-day activities. And it can be hard to fall out of that cycle because, again, like, work and sleep and food is all really important, but it's like what's happening in those in-between times, like that time when like you're upset with yourself because you're binge watching on Netflix and you're like, oh man, like I should really be doing something else. And I mean, I've definitely caught myself in these times, and I'm not like speaking out of anything that I haven't experienced myself in this situation, but it's it's kind of like, we all get that feeling. It's okay to, like binge watch on Netflix, or just like to not do anything. It's perfectly fine to not do anything, but it's when you're starting to feel stuck, it's when you're starting to feel like you're not fulfilling something within yourself. And that feeling, like that feeling. It's like there's something that's just like just not there, And I think that it's something that we constantly have to deal with and work with. And I think that's something that is a gift rather than a curse. It's like, if we ever became so content in our lives, then how can change ever happen? How can the world ever change if we're constantly kind of falling content with like the circumstances of our situation? And I mean, this may sound like very vast, but in our day-to-day lives, again, like we feel this, we wouldn't feel stuck if there wasn't something else that we wanted. And it doesn't have to be a drastic change or a drastic difference of the things that we're experiencing in our regular lives. I mean, it could be like a small change up. Maybe you want to add exercise or something into your day-to-day life, or meditation, or whatever it is. It's like, when we're not moving or changing things in our lives according to what we're feeling within ourselves, then we start feeling stuck. We start feeling stagnant, and it's uncomfortable because it's not like it's not how we move as people, I believe. I mean, like, and again, like, I mean, I guess there are some people that love routine, that love, like patterns and consistency, and of course that's great, and I admire that. But also, I also ask those people as well, like, is that something that is constant? And also, like, what got you to the place where you got into that routine? Because, like, you had to go through certain things, whether emotionally, physically, in order to say, like, okay, like, I need to wake up 2 hours earlier in the morning so I can have some time to myself. And you start creating a routine based off the things that you're feeling within yourself. And once you have like that flow going within yourself, then yeah, like, you're coasting, and like, and you start taking things as they come, because that's what you've adapted to do. But until you get to that point where you're okay with change, you're okay with the differences that are coming to you in life. The moment that you're okay with the fact that, like, this routine can adapt, and it can change, and it can shift, then that's when I think that's when, like, we're really in our prime, because like that change is so necessary. It's almost as if that change needs to be part of our routine in that way, because it does help to not only alleviate that understanding of knowing everything, but it also helps to just welcome new things into your life. I think a lot of times we're resistant to amazing things that are available to us, that are coming to us in lives, because we're so stuck in feeling as though we have to be a certain way or move a certain way. And yet, like, we have amazing people and opportunities and things coming into our lives and passing us right by, because we're not grabbing a hold of them as we see them, because we're so fearful of the things. And and that's just it. It's like we just constantly have to know that, like, it's okay to have change, and that change is inevitable, and that changing up people and places and things, like, just all the nouns, like, just change up, always have new nouns in your life. And I think that's something that's so critical to keeping life exciting. It's like we sit back and we daydream. Again, like I said, daydreaming is this idea of manifesting these things when otherwise unstimulated. And then we find ourselves daydreaming about things and situations and prospects of people and different things, because we're not entertained or enthralled in our own lives. And it's not until we start living those dreams out and kind of not worrying about the inhibitions, because in our daydreams, I mean, of course, like, we can have anxious provoking ones where they're just causing us more uh you know anxiety or depression or whatever it is. Like, we're just imagining like the worst things. But there are also these daydreams that are very fantastic, and ones that can kind of like, you can think about, or imagine a life that's uh, different, or imagine yourself in a different place. And I think that's something that's like, that's so critical, when you can imagine yourself, or start imagining yourself in a different place, in a different situation than what you're in now. Then I think that that's something that's so telling of what you truly want, and I think that a lot of that is different than what we have. So again, having something that is different in your life, changing those things up, it's so perfect. And going along with that is it's never too late to like learn and it's never too late to like learn and grow, like learn new skills and just like develop more as a person, like intellectually, physically, whatever it is, like learn, grow, and expand. It's like that is part of that change, and it's part of self-development. It's part of how we become unstuck in many situations, is because we're learning more about ourselves. We're growing into like who we truly want to be by beginning to move towards the things that we're passionate about. And I guess like these all kind of go together in that feeling of being stuck, because being stuck is just, I think it's that realization, something within your mind and your body, like that feeling of discomfort, that feeling of just like something isn't right. And we wouldn't have that feeling again if it wasn't our body, our minds telling us that it's time for a change, it's time for something to happen. And it doesn't mean that you have to know what that happens, like what that means, but just once you start feeling that, accept it, and accept that I'm ready to welcome change. I'm ready to like welcome change and whatever that looks like, and start looking within your environment of like the opportunities that could exist. Like when you see something, you're like, wow, that could be something, and then there's another thought that's coming in that's saying, oh wait, but maybe, kind of like weigh those pros and cons. Like, like maybe it's not something that's efficient for that time, or like something that you should do in that time, but at the end of the day, like more often than not, grasping onto that opportunity or taking a hold of whatever life is bringing you that you think will help to improve your life or better your life, why not? It's like what's worse, like the idea of continuously living in this monotonous way, or taking a risk and grabbing for something that's, well, that at the end of the day may not even be that detrimental to your life, like applying for a job, or starting waking up early, or whatever it is. Like a lot of these things that even are New Year's resolutions, like a lot of these things can be achieved if we start actively trying to manifest them and accept them as something that we're ready to have in our lives. Take the opportunity, hold on to it, grasp it, and know that if nothing works out, or if it doesn't work out, then there will be other opportunities and other chances, and you will land back on your feet, and you will, as long as you keep moving towards that goal, that end goal, and not focused on the path itself, then you will achieve that. But it's about moving towards that and knowing that there is room for change, and that things aren't always going to work out the way that you expect it to. And another thing that kind of goes along with that is the idea of being perfect. Like, you don't have to be perfect in anything that you do. I mean, like, perfection is this crazy ideal that is, I mean, it's unrealistic in reality. And I think that nature is, like nature is perfect. There's like a perfect balance of just like all the things that allows us to live and grow and breathe. Yet the cosmetics of nature is filled with imperfections. And I think that, I mean, that just tells me that life is about imperfections. Life is about learning through the differences and learning through the challenges, and that is part of life. So don't try to be perfect, because you're going to be wasting your energy towards something that is impossible, and you're going to stress yourself out, you're going to weigh yourself out, and it's going to inevitably get you back stuck in that place. That idea, if I can't do it perfect, then I just can't do it at all. Or what if I start doing it and it's not right? It's not always going to be right. I mean, like, every venture that we start on, like we learn through the mistakes and we grow through the mistakes, but it's not until you make those mistakes that that you actually learn and grow from. So don't try to be perfect because it will just weigh you down, and it'll just, cause you to again like be stuck in that place. Um, with that, I mean, I think that it goes without saying that procrastination is probably one of the biggest things that goes along with that. I mean, like I guess the idea of being perfect or like doing something right may be the cause of that procrastination, but also, maybe just our inherent not want to do something. And I'm really bad at this. I mean, procrastination. I'm not I'm not the most like I'm not the most active person. I like being active, like going on hikes and hanging out with people and things like that. But I feel like I am not a very not a very active person. I procrastinate so much. It's kind of part of me, I think, in a way, and it's I don't think it's anything that's necessarily a bad thing, procrastination, but it's something that I think we have to recognize when it's just kind of playful procrastination or it's detrimental to us moving forward procrastination, because I think those are kind of like two different places where if there's something that it's like, okay, well, I have to set something up for a gathering and you're procrastinating about it, and at the end of the day, like, if it doesn't get done, then it's not going to be the end of the world. Everything's going to keep moving and maybe no one's even going to notice that kind of procrastination. Okay, yeah, like, don't stress yourself out doing something that you don't want to do. That's social obligations. Like, procrastinate all you want to, and if you get to it, then you get to it. But there's this aspect of procrastination that gets in the way when we're trying to actually achieve the things that we want to achieve and move towards our dreams and goals. And that's kind of where, I mean, I feel like this can be an episode in itself, procrastination, but that's kind of where we have to recognize that, okay, is this feeling of just kind of like not doing this or like not wanting to do this, is this kind of like laziness or whatever it is that you're feeling to not want to do it? Is it worth not having this thing? And I don't think it's until we realize the true value of the thing that we're going towards, like until we understand that true value, the value that it has for us, the value that it has for our lives, and what we truly want, and how that speaks to who we are as people. I don't think until we truly realize that can we move past that procrastination. Because again, just like that party where it's like, if you don't really feel tied to the outcome in any kind of way, then you're just gonna keep procrastinating. You're not gonna go anywhere because it's not meaningful for you in that way. So you have to create meaning in the things that you want to achieve. Start refining that goal, refining that idea. Like, ask yourself that question: what do I want? Like, what do I desire? What would be fulfilling for me? And it can be so hard to really think about those things, but how will you get any closer to understanding them if you're not thinking about them, if you're not asking yourself these questions? And these are questions that we constantly have to ask ourselves. I kind of treat myself like a 3-year-old in a lot of ways, where if I think something or feel something or want something, I kind of ask myself why. And then I keep asking myself why, until I get to that core of what it is that I'm truly feeling about it. Whether it's like a feeling like jealousy or something, like, it actually took me a while to realize like that I was a jealous person. Like, I'm not jealous by nature, but like I can get jealous, and I used to always like pride myself in saying, oh, like, I just like, I never get jealous, kind of like that kind of mindset. And that's not the case. And it took me until I was in my senior year in my undergrad that I was like, oh wow, like I actually can be jealous. But it was like after I moved past the anger and the frustration and the sadness and like whatever else it was that I was feeling in that moment. It wasn't until like I asked myself, why am I sad? Why am I upset? Why am I angry? Why am I confused, or whatever it is? And it wasn't until like I kept asking myself and probing myself why, until I got to that point. I was like, oh, I'm jealous. Okay, well, why? Like, why am I jealous? And then like, it goes until then. But when you start understanding and uncovering things, it's kind of like, digging for something, and it's like, as you uncover it, then it's there, and you can either hold on to it or you can like throw it away. But it's not until you know that it's there that you can do anything with it. So that procrastination, and part of that is it's getting out of that mindset. Like a lot of times we can get stuck in that mindset of like life is difficult, it's so challenging, like how are we ever gonna get past it, or move through it, or whatever it is. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like that is a mindset that will keep you stuck. It will keep that. I mean, like our thoughts, feelings, actions, behaviors, they're all connected. And when you start thinking in that way that life is difficult, it's going to be too challenging and things like that, you're manifesting that in your real life, and you're remaining stuck. You're remaining exactly where you are, because everything else is every other movement is being criticized by yourself. You're critiquing those things, and you, I mean, like it's not doing you any good as far as moving you in the place that you want to go. So just getting out of that mindset of, that this is difficult, or this is challenging. It's really something that's critical, and making that next taking that next step forward. And part of that's changing the dialogue with yourself. It's like a lot of that can just be, like instead of saying like this is difficult, like acknowledge that something can be challenging, but also acknowledge that I know this is challenging, but I know this is also something I want. I I know this will be difficult, and I'll have my downfalls, but I know that I will succeed if I continue towards moving that. And I mean, I don't want to sound like preachy and like super motivational speaker in this way, but it really is about changing that dialogue with yourself, because no one, I mean, like you may have really great people in your life that are constantly admiring you and telling you that, yeah, you can do it, like go for it. And like they know every thought that you have, and like, yeah, like that thing you were thinking, go for it. But that's probably not going to be the case for many people at all. So you have to have that conversation with yourself. You have to have that self-talk for yourself, and change that dialogue for yourself, because no one else is going to do it. And it can be very scary to think about that, but it's also very empowering to know that you are your own person, and that you should continue to stay true to like that dialogue that you have with yourself, because like that positive dialogue that you have with yourself, not just about being stuck, but just like in general about yourself. Like love yourself, give yourself compassion, give yourself acceptance. Like, and that goes into that part of being, like not knowing what that next step is. Know that that's okay. Give yourself love anyway. Give yourself compassion. Know that like you may not know now, but like you will know at some point. But changing that dialogue, changing those words, tell yourself you love yourself more. Look in the mirror. I don't know, but just changing that dialogue with yourself is something that's so critical, and it can help you to start distinguishing between like facts and feelings. Like again, like changing that dialogue within yourself and asking yourself those questions that are so critical to understanding, like that is going to help you distinguish between like the things that are actual factual, like actually real, and the ones that you're just kind of making up and manifesting in your own head. Because like we can be our worst enemy, and oftentimes we are our worst enemy when it comes to progression and moving forward and moving outside of any kind of circumstance that we're in, because that that's just kind of how that works. And again, we have to start changing that internal dialogue within ourselves, so we can start changing those feelings that we're having, and really start distinguishing, okay, well, I feel as though I'm going to fail in this venture, and actually I'm in my real life, I'm not moving towards it because of these thoughts. But if you realize that this is just a thought, this idea that you're going to fail at whatever venture you're going to do, or whatever step you're going to take next, then know that that's just a feeling, because you haven't acted on it. You haven't done anything. You're really just thinking about it. So know that that's just a feeling, that's just a thought, and keep the past out of it. Like I spoke about with memories, the past will weigh us down, and it can also be the thing that moves us and projects us forward. But the thing that's critical about it in this situation is that our anxieties, our fears, our worries will keep us stuck. They'll keep us right there where we are, staying afraid. And as we think about it more, as we feed that more, it becomes stronger and stronger, and we become more and more complacent and more stuck in that place, because we're literally being weighed down by these feelings. And feelings come and go. It's like not every moment of your life are you feeling anxiety. I mean, like there are some points, like maybe frequently throughout your day, maybe you're feeling anxious most of the time out of your day, but is there like 10 minutes time when like you're just like walking down the street or something and you feel a breeze and you see the trees flow, or someone tells you a joke and you're laughing, and it's like in those brief moments that gives us indication that like those thoughts are just like they come and go, and sometimes they stay longer. But why are they staying longer? Are they staying longer because we're feeding them? Are they staying longer because of actual things that we're experiencing? And a lot of times it's just ourselves that we're kind of fighting with, and it's about really keeping that out of the way when it's coming to the things that we want to do to move ourselves forward and take that next step to get unstuck. It's it's probably one of the most critical things, because again, like, we can be our worst enemies. And speaking of worst enemies, relying on others to help you out, or relying on what other people say to move you, I think that is going to be the second worst thing that's possible. It's like, outside of yourself being your worst enemy, I guess there's only one other option, that's someone else. But outside of yourself being your worst enemy, there are going to be other people that are going to tell you what you should do, how you should move, where you should go, and what they think about those movements and those actions and all that stuff. And some of that will be so positive, and some of that will be, filled with love and connection, and meant to empower you and help you to move towards your best place. But do not rely on other people for that. Do not rely on anything outside of yourself to move yourself out of that place of being stuck, because again, you are the one that has to do it, and you're the one that has to find that motivation within yourself to do it. So just kind of keep other people out of it when it comes to that. Like, obviously, like, your actions may involve other people, but as for your perseverance, as for your internal dialogue that you have, don't let anyone else influence that, because it's not their decision, it's not their life, it's your life, and you live it the way that you need to live it, and make the steps that you need to make for yourself. And the last thing I'll speak about on this topic is speak to others. And I know that kind of like contradicts the last thing about relying on others and what other people think, but it's kind of different than speaking with other people, because speaking with other people, again, that creates that community and allows you to gain that better understanding that you're not alone. This concept of universality, I think that some of you may have listened to the Facebook Live that I posted about universality, but this is a concept that I think is so important. But there was a psychotherapist that goes by the name of Irvin Yalom. Well, that's his real name, so he goes by his real name. And he specializes in doing group psychotherapy, and he has these things called 11 therapeutic factors that influence change. He has 11 therapeutic factors that influence change when speaking about individuals in a group therapeutic session. And although, like, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to go to therapy or anything like that, the idea is that any type of group that we can be in, any type of community that we can build, speaking about these things is something that's so critical in helping us to realize that we're not alone. That aspect of universality is the idea that we're not alone, that we feel this feeling of being stuck, and that there's someone else that's maybe stuck right now too. And just knowing that can help us so much in realizing that it's not bad to feel that way. And realizing the more people that are stuck, you begin to actually embrace that. You start to realize, okay, I'm not doing anything bad. Like, this feeling that I'm having isn't a bad thing. It's just something for me to recognize, and it's something for me to decipher what that means as far as that next step to make. And a lot of times, even just being in that group setting and helping someone else out, I mean, it's altruism. It's being very altruistic, and that's the idea of learning from teaching others or sharing with others. And so you're not only speaking about things. There's so many times when I'm speaking to someone about certain concepts, and like light bulbs are just like popping off in my head, because it's like I'm realizing I just imagine light bulbs exploding in my head. So it was a funny imagery, but light bulbs going off in my head, because it's like, oh wow, like, this is exactly what I need to hear. It's kind of like I was speaking to myself, but it can be so rewarding to start getting that conversation and realizing that you kind of have the answers to your own problems within yourself. It's just kind of getting out getting it out into words and kind of like speaking it to people, because as you explain your feelings more, as you explain your situation more, as you explain your things and listen to other people and hear their words and like realizing that some of those words connect, and like, it's like this huge enmeshment of just love and acceptance and creativity that can be so growing for all of us in both ways of both receiving that community and giving something back that ultimately comes back to us in the form of knowledge and better understanding of ourselves. So this episode turned out to be a little bit longer than expected, so I'm just going to end it there. I said I was going to bring up nonprofit. That's, again, something that changed. But as we speak about this, feeling stuck, like it can be weeks, it can be a few days that we're feeling stuck or whatever it is. But if we can't find a friend or family member to have these conversations with, and we really do need to have these conversations with someone, it's so critical. I mean, like, please try to find someone in your life to have these conversations with. And if you need someone that will meet you and kind of like bounce some ideas off of, like, a therapist is always great. Like, it's, I mean, I obviously advocate for therapy, but I don't want people to think that therapy is going to be like this whole idea of like people telling you what to do. Like, a good therapist will, advise you in accordance to what you're giving and what you're sharing. And it's really like a balancing, like both of you are working together. And I think that's what any type of relationship should be, as far as like whether it's friends, family, or a therapist, people working together. So I just want to throw this reference out there for anyone that may be looking for a therapist in your area. You can go to goodtherapy.org, and you can just type in your zip code of where you live, your zip code, and it'll come up with a huge list of, or not so huge if you're in a smaller area, but it'll come up with a list of therapists in your area. They have a breakdown of kind of what you're looking for, different therapeutic styles, if you're familiar with any of those, as well as different insurances that will take it. There are insurance companies that are starting to allow certain number of sessions of therapy in their insurance. So that's something really amazing, because mental health is just as critical as our physical health. So again, goodtherapy.org, if you want to go on there and kind of like just check out things. You don't even have to like sign up for a therapist or anything like that. You can just kind of see what's out there and have it as reference. So there's that. And if anyone wants some instant therapy, something that's fast acting and gets the job done for the time being, YouTube raccoon eating cherries. It's make sure the volume's on, because that just adds so much. It's the greatest thing. But I watched it several times. It's I don't know, it's kind of like something simple, but it's also just it's humorous. The raccoon is humorous. I've always wanted a raccoon. But anyway, YouTube raccoon eating cherries, if you want a little laugh or enjoyment or smile or whatever that is. And again, rate, review, subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, follow, do all the things. If you want to follow on Instagram, it's everything.sun podcasts. If you want to join the group, it's Everything Under the Sun with Ty on Facebook, and Twitter is Every Sun Podcast. And you can email as well, everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com for all of that. So yeah, I think that's it. I love you all, and I will see you next time.